have raised Rashee Rice to the roof, although we're not that different on Rashee Rice. I think we're very pro. I think both of us are probably higher than consensus on Rashee Rice because I think, and we've talked about this before, I think we understand that short-term viewpoint of a player because he's still tainted by the cloud of, oh, well, he's going to be suspended. He's coming off of an injury. And to that, I would say it's only 6 weeks. And the injury doesn't, if anything, it's more time for him to rehab from the injury and for him to get ready to roll starting on week 7 if he indeed does miss 6 weeks. You know what I mean?
I feel like it just grows more likely too that suspension's not 6 weeks. Like if he stays out of, like if he perfectly stays out of trouble until this sentence is handed out, like it just, we're not talking about like an incredible length of absence. And then the most important thing to me was what I saw with the Kansas City Chiefs without Rashee Rice this year. We did not see Xavier Worthy really take over into a meaningful role until the last few weeks of the season. And even then, a lot of force feed targets, a lot of screens, like a lot of, I don't want to say that like the Chiefs are just kind of wishing things into existence, but it's kind of been the game plan they've been running offensively. Like they've been trying to put Marquise Brown like slash Xavier Worthy into the Rashee Rice role. And they've just been really trying to hodgepodge what they wanted their offensive identity to be this whole time. And that just gave me all the confirmation of like this passing offense runs through Rashee Rice right now when he is healthy, and nothing is going to change in 2025 when he is back on the field. He's going to be the target hog. And so if we want to talk about, putting him 15, behind some of these guys like Ladd McConkey, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, sure. I'm all for it. There is some uncertainty there. Absolutely. That being said, again, I still find myself to be a dynasty manager where I think maybe it's hubris, but I can survive 6 weeks of not having Rashee Rice to start the year.
Yeah.
So if I miss him for 6 weeks for one season right now, then like, so be it. I have an infinite amount of probabilities that anyone on my roster blows their knee out tomorrow and is out for an extended period of time. So like these are the games of chance that we take. And we even made an argument on a different episode that 6 weeks of Rashee Rice not getting hurt could end up being a positive down the road. Like I know in my redraft league, like AJ Brown went down early on in the year, and had I not had him, in the long run, then I wouldn't have won, my redraft league there. So you never know how the chips will fall. And so I think overreacting to 6 weeks that are not injury related absences, is kind of missing the point here.
Agreed. It's very similar to, and in this case, it really didn't work out, but I think it's similar to the TJ Hawkinson conversation that we were having heading into this past season. And we were both saying, get the discounted TJ Hawkinson while you can. It just so happens that I think you can still get discounted TJ Hawkinson right now. Maybe not as discounted as it was because when he came back, he really didn't perform the way that we might have thought. Like he had a couple nice weeks, but really there was a lot of weeks where he was finishing underneath 10 fantasy points. Like he finishes the tight end 5 in week 12 and the tight end 5 in week 10. But outside of that, there really wasn't much. But the difference with Rashee Rice is we saw it. We saw a glimpse of it, of what it was gonna be for the rest of the season. Like the Chiefs peeled the curtain back to how that they plan to use Rashee Rice potentially for his entire time in Kansas City, however long he's there with Patrick Mahomes, and it was working. Like it was like he was averaging. I don't have it pulled up right away, and it's skewed too because I think I'm pulling it up right now because I'm going off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure his fantasy points per game is a little bit skewed because he exited really early in that week 4 game when he got hurt. It was either week 4 or 5 as my computer is really thinking long and hard about whether or not it's going to pull up the page or not. All right, there we go. Yeah, so he left that Chargers game after just running 2 routes.
Mm-hmm.
And
it does count that as a game played. which it
Yeah, and so it
shouldn't.
skews it, which skews it, and some people won't look past that. But if you tally up his fantasy points per game output for those 3 weeks, and I get it, it's 3 weeks, but you're talking 20 fantasy points per game, over 20 fantasy points per game. I think it might actually be 20 fantasy points per game. Let me do some quick back of the
But
computer
that's
math here
the
real quick.
that's the exact thesis, right? Is like he's stepping into a 20-point per game role tethered to the most talented quarterback in the NFL with the best offensive coach in the NFL and Andy Reid. There's nothing there. I have a very hard time starting to rank Rashee Rice outside of the top 12 without really wish casting somebody into a more prominent role. And that's why you need to sell me on Garrett Wilson without using ifs, buts, or coconuts.
Well, he had the best season he's had so far.
Yawn.
Yeah, I mean, he finished as what did he finish as?
18, wide receiver 18.
Wide receiver 18. And I would be interested to see what his output was before general manager Aaron Rodgers decided to just tank the entire. Well, wide receiver 10 is what he finished as, according to Player Profiler. That's through 18 weeks, I guess. You could be.
Fantasy points per game.
Wide receiver 10 overall. But,
yeah, that doesn't matter.
But we're talking about a guy, 153 targets this year. He's averaged well over 150 targets in every season that he's played. And the problem with him is he's just had to endure terrible quarterback play. And that includes Aaron Rodgers. And the play really has been inconsistent. Because if you look at the first 4 weeks, wide receiver 29, 33, 29, 60. Then in week 5, wide receiver 5. Week 6, wide receiver 2. And I believe that's about the time they traded for Devontae Adams, if memory serves correct.
I believe Pittsburgh was Adams' first game.
Okay, so that would be week 7.
I think.
And I mean, he finished wide receiver 20 that week. And then in week 9, you have a wide receiver 2 overall finish. But there's a lot of ups and downs there. And so you're probably thinking for Garrett Wilson, he is... I bet if we looked at best ball points added, he was probably pretty decent. I don't have that stat pulled up right now.
But he was 17th.
Okay, maybe not as good as I thought.
So,
but I will admit that the situation is not necessarily ideal because the Jets are kind of a disaster with their ownership. And they're not going to get Ben Johnson. In fact, Ben Johnson turned him down. So they're going to probably get a tier B or a tier 2 or a tier 3 coach or a tier B or a tier C coach, however you want to look at that.
They've been rumored for Arthur Smith, by the way. There's rumored interest there.
Which would be bad. But I mean, let's just say if Matt Nagy's the coach, because I've heard his name thrown around too. This is a guy who's going to get a lot of targets. I mean, historically, I mean, he's averaged 150 targets a season, well over. At age 24, we had a prototype or like a build that we like, 6 feet tall, 184 pounds. I get it. He hasn't really put it together from a fantasy points per game standpoint, but I can't really ignore the target share nor some of the other metrics that point to the fact that he should be much better than he is. But
yeah,
I hope I avoided using ifs, ands, or buts or whatever, or coconuts or whatever you said.
You did, and that is why your argument was so weak, unfortunately.
Oh, well. Okay.
So what's concerning is the best case scenario for him is Adams and Aaron Rodgers returning next year. But look, he's gotten a lot of targets. Targets haven't done jack for him. Is his first season above 13 fantasy points per game, like 30, 32, and 18. It finishes in fantasy points per game. They're not bad. And again, I don't want to besmirch the name of Garrett Wilson. I think he's a very talented receiver that has been just like similarly to Drake London before this season, just got buried by terrible situation, bad quarterback play, bad play calling. And so I do want it to be known that in a very good situation, I do think Garrett Wilson is a top 10 talent. I cannot rank him there anymore because situation matters a lot. Garrett Wilson is a very good player, and situation has made us think that he is not a good player based on his analytics. I mean, look at any number, any metric. Yards per route run, I think his highest finish is 29th among receivers, which is not great. He's getting a lot of the opportunity, but without a good quarterback, without a good play calling, without a good defense, you're playing from behind, you're playing with bad field position. This is very tough to overcome. And this is not something that's going to happen in a season, in an off season, barring a miracle. So, and again, like I say all these negative things, I got him at 14, but I just don't think he can be a top 10 guy above guys like Rashee Rice quite yet.
Would it be fair to say that this is a classic case of...
I have him at 15. I have 2 14s, by the way, but sorry, continue.
It's numbers. Here, we can fix that right now. 15. There we go. So that still has him at 11. But is this a classic case of great player, terrible situation? Is it that simple?
100%. Like, let's snap our fingers, right? And we give the New York Jets Todd Monken and Sam Darnold this offseason. Not out of the realm of possibility, but unlikely. I immediately will change my stance. I might not move him up from 15 super quickly, but if he's going to be the number one target in what's known to be a productive offense with Sam Darnold, the guy who looks to have turned things around with his career in Minnesota, like that is just such a different outlook than playing with Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers again next year.
I'm laughing a little bit because
Jameis could probably
Jameis. Well, Jameis I think is a top 32 quarterback regardless of how you feel about his turnover proneness. But I'm just laughing because Sam Darnold back in New York would be hilarious.
It would be hilarious, but like that is the situation that Jets fans should be like. That's one of the situations that they should be clamoring for right now. Jets should be going after Monken, Cohen, Joe Brady, somebody like that.
Yeah, if they could get Joe Brady, I think that would be a home run. They're picking at 7 right now, so they're probably out of the Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
Cam Ward. They'd probably have to take a flyer on somebody in the second round, or who knows what'll happen with draft seasons. There's quarterbacks that fly up the board
Jets
all the time.
Trade down at 7, I would imagine. Like they have to be a prime trade down candidate.
I would assume so. I would assume so. But they definitely need it's similar to the Steelers. Like the Jets. What would be wrong with luring Russell Wilson away from Pittsburgh or Justin Fields, and then drafting, I don't know, Jalen Milroe in the second round if he falls that far, or Jackson Dart, or whoever, Quinn Ewers if he comes out, like one of these guys that you can maybe
you get the
develop.
right play caller, man. Like the world is essentially your oyster. I mean, Joe Flacco's winning games in 2025. Like it is possible.
So anyway, like I agree with you. I think maybe I have Garrett Wilson a little bit too high just because the situation isn't anywhere close to like the situation Ladd McConkey has, for example, or like I have him right below Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. is in an amazing situation, assuming Trevor Lawrence comes back healthy as the alpha wide receiver. I mean, who knows? Jacksonville might hire Ben Johnson. He's rumored to be interested in that job. So yeah, I should probably be closer. I should probably have him maybe 13 or 14 instead of at number 9. But
yeah. That's why we have these conversations.
That's right. And let us know what you think in the chat.